So, you've seen the glowing reviews, right? You've heard all the hype. But what is it actually like to own a Triumph Speed 400 or a Scrambler 400X after that new bike smell is long gone? Well, today, we're going to dig into the real owner experiences, the good, the bad, and the fixes you definitely won't find in any brochure. So, for just about every owner, where does this whole journey start? It kicks off with a test ride that just completely blows them away. This is the classic honeymoon phase, and for a really good reason. The bike makes one heck of a first impression. And that quote right there, it really gets to the heart of it. Owners feel like they're getting a motorcycle that punches way, way above its price tag. This isn't just some budget bike with a fancy badge slapped on it. The quality feels real, like something you'd expect from a machine that costs a whole lot more. And the praise gets super specific. It's not just a vague, yeah, it's a good bike. People are pointing to the little things, the premium feel of the switches, the quality of the welds. They're raving about the engine's low-end torque. The stuff that makes city riding an absolute joy. And they're just floored by how smooth it is. One owner said there's virtually zero buzz at cruising speeds. In traffic, it's a dream. So incredibly agile. It's a really, really compelling package. But yeah, that's not the whole story. For a lot of owners, that initial love affair slams head-on into a pretty harsh reality. Because after the first few weeks, maybe a couple of months, a really frustrating pattern starts to show up. A whole series of concerning and honestly sometimes dangerous problems begin to pop up, turning that dream ride into a total headache. This quote from an owner just perfectly captures that feeling of sheer frustration. What started out as this amazing experience just turned into a constant battle with the bike, and for some, even with the service centers. And look, this wasn't just some minor annoyance. We're talking about a whole cascade of failures. And it's not just one thing. Owners are reporting a whole laundry list of issues. The biggest one is the engine stalling for sure. But then you've got the instrument cluster just going blank after a simple bike wash, a faulty ignition switch that decides to fail randomly, check engine lights that won't go away, and a fuel gauge that's basically a random number generator. And to top it all off, a lot of people said the service centers were just no help at all, sometimes even blaming the rider. Okay, let's zero in on the most critical problem here. The downshift stall. So picture this. You're slowing for traffic, you pull the clutch in, shift down from third to second, and nothing. The engine just dies. It just cuts out, leaving you stuck, usually in a really vulnerable spot with cars moving all around you. And that's the bottom line. It's not just an inconvenience. It's a serious, serious safety issue. One owner told a story about how their bike stalled right in the middle of traffic, and a car ended up clipping their rear mudguard. I mean, this one issue, all by itself, was enough to make some people totally regret buying the bike. Now, with all these complaints piling up, Triumph did step up. They acknowledged the stalling problem, and they rolled out an official ECU update. But the results out in the real world were, let's just say, a little complicated. Yeah, it was a real mixed bag. On the one hand, the ECU update did fix the constant stalling for most owners, which was a massive relief. It proved the company was listening. But it wasn't a silver bullet. Some owners say the bike still stalls, just not as often, maybe once or twice a month. And this is a big one, the update did absolutely nothing for all those other electronic gremlins, like the dodgy fuel gauge or the instrument cluster that's afraid of water. So with Triumph's official fix being, well, incomplete, the owner community did what passionate communities always do. They went out and found their own solution. And this is where the story shifts from pure frustration to, a bit of empowerment, as riders took it on themselves to actually perfect the bike. The answer for a whole lot of people has been this little gadget, the FuelX Pro Plus. So, in simple terms, it's a little plug-in box that sits between your oxygen sensor and the bike's computer. It basically tricks the bike into running a slightly richer air-fuel mixture. And it turns out that not only makes the bike perform better, but it also smooths out the very problems the stock tune couldn't fix. And the difference is, apparently, night and day. That stock throttle, which could be kind of jerky and abrupt at low speeds, owners now describe it as smooth as butter. That mid-range punch that was already pretty good, now it comes in earlier and more pronounced. And that feeling of the engine straining when you really rev it out, gone. Replaced by a cooler, much more effortless feel. Of course, there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? The biggest downside is that installing a device like this is gonna void your engine warranty, and that's a huge deal on a brand new bike. Owners also report a small hit to fuel economy, maybe around 2 kilometers per liter. And there's this weird little quirk where the engine acts a bit funny for just a few seconds after a cold start, while the whole system figures itself out. So, after all of that, the highs, the lows, the official fixes, and the community hacks, what's the final word from the people who actually live with this bike day in and day out? This is the big question, isn't it? Is that incredible value, that incredible bike for the money, worth the potential for some really frustrating early problems? So here's the consensus. The fundamental bike, the engine, the frame, the build quality, it's fantastic for the price. Absolutely excellent. But you have to go into it with your eyes wide open and kind of expect some of these early issues. The official 6 from Triumph helps, but it might not solve everything for everyone. The real hero here, honestly, is the owner community that figured out how to make the bike what it should have been from the start. And this quote, I think, just sums it all up perfectly. Even with all the flaws, owners still feel like the Triumph 400 is an incredible machine. The problems are real, they're frustrating, but for most people, they don't erase the bike's fundamental brilliance, especially not at this price point. And that really just leaves us with one final thought. The Triumph 400 is not a perfect bike right out of the factory. It's a fantastic bike with flaws that, thanks to a super passionate community, are mostly fixable. So the real question you gotta ask yourself is this: are you willing to take on what might be a small project to get that perfection? Your answer to that is what will tell you if this is the right bike for you.